Aster Phoenix was a hero, although a much different kind to Jaden, as while the Slifer Slacker was cheerful and carefree, Aster had a dark past which gave him a real reason to actually fight against villainy. This drive, combined with the power of destiny, gave Aster victories against even the most prestigious duels of the series in his quest for justice. So today, we're going to be looking at Aster Phoenix's 10 most important cards, how they fulfilled his destiny, and whether or not fate would be on his side in the TCG. Reigning in over the darkness at number 10 is Destiny Hero Dystopia, a card that symbolized Aster's complete belief in the teachings of Duel Academy. Dystopia can be summoned using any 2 Destiny Hero monsters, and whether it's special summoned, you can target any level 4 lower Destiny Hero monster in your graveyard to burn your opponent for that monster's attack. But that's not all, as Dystopia also has a quick effect that can only be activated while its attack is different from its original attack. It lets you target any monster in the field to destroy it and then revert Dystopia's attack back to 2800. Now, the Aster Phoenix that most people know from GX never actually used Dystopia at all, but it was the main boss monster of Aster Phoenix from Arc 5, the Commander-in-Chief of Duel Academy's Arc project. This version of Aster was quite a bit different in both his way of dueling and his personality, but arguably the biggest contrast between the two was how dedicated Arc 5 Aster was to Leo Akaba's teachings that dueling was about strength and power. This directly opposed the beliefs of Yugioh Sakaki, who did his best to try and teach Aster the duels were supposed to be bringing like childlike joy, and used Smile World to try and bring a smile to Aster's face. Yugioh succeeded, but because of Aster's devotion to Duel Academy, he refused to accept the loss of the school's ruthless philosophy and tore Smile World in two, vowing revenge on the Dueltainer in hope that he would be able to prove that joy had no place in duels, opposing a world of smiles by choosing to rule over a dark dystopia. And this latest Destiny hero was the perfect tool to enforce that rule. Aster revolved most of his strategy around bringing Dystopia to the field as quickly as possible, and used a bunch of stat-modifying effects to constantly use Dystopia's removal through a duel, and was so strong that he almost managed to defeat Yugioh Sakaki on 2 separate occasions. But after their second duel, Aster regained his smile again, realizing that Yugioh had been right, and so chose to fight alongside Yugioh, defecting from Duel Academy to help pave the way for a shining utopia. A belief manifests in Dystopia's new evolution, Dusktopia, a monster who contrasts its de-evolution destructive force by being based entirely around protection, and was such a beacon of pure hope that it even managed to break Yugioh out of his awakened state. In the TCG though, this shining beacon was a lot dimmer, as Dystopia has never been amazing in the actual game. Its effect to perform an extra fusion summon can be great for extension, but its passive protection effects and the fact that it needs a Destiny Hero fusion monster means that it has always been somewhat awkward to use. However, its darker form, Dystopia, actually saw a ton of competitive success in hero strategies, as it used to be one of the best monsters you could summon with Fusion Destiny. A fusion spell lets you use monsters from your deck to summon out any monster that mentions a Destiny hero as a material. With this, you could summon out Dystopia with any 2 Destiny hero monsters in your deck, and if one of those monsters was Destiny hero Dynatag, you could use its graveyard effect to increase Dystopia's attack to use its pop during your opponent's turn. Nowadays though, Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer has become the preferred target to summon with Fusion Destiny, and is a lot more flexible to monsters you can use since you aren't reliant on Dynatag for interruption. So, while it's definitely unfortunate to see Dystopia's role was eclipsed, it's still a solid card in the modern era for hero strategies, as its effect can work with other stat modifiers like Sunrise and Dangerous, and that would certainly bring a smile to Aster's world. Spawning into number 9 is Destiny Hero Doomlord, a key component to Aster's unbreakable Destiny Hero strategy. Doomlord can target one monster opponent controls and banish it. Sending it 2 turns into the future will return during your second standby phase, but you can't declare an attack to use the effect of Doomlord, and it must be face-up protection for you to activate and resolve it. Disregarding these downsides, Doomlord declared the prominent presence of the D heroes in Aster's second duel against Jaden, where he debuted these new monsters as an evolution of elemental heroes, dabbling in Destiny, Destruction, and Death. And Doomlord detailed a deadly display, as despite its deficient destructive force, it dealt with any defender that dared deny Destiny, even Shining Fire Wingman, Jaden's ultimate ace at the time. Jaden eventually managed to destroy Doomlord by battle, but this was just one part of Aster's strategy. The next was bringing Captain Tenacious to the field to revive Doomlord from the grave to keep the pressure on Jaden, especially after Tenacious was equipped with D-Shield and Ring of Magnetism, forming an almost impenetrable wall as Clock Tower Prison slowly counted up. But in the TCG, Doomlord isn't really the stall tool it was made out to be. Its effect is actually pretty solid, as it can act as a great removal option to deal with problematic boss monsters, which is actually why it saw minor play near Necros format, since it can be used to out the Jhin lock by banishing your opponent's monster that used Jhin as a material. However, even with this niche, Doomlord is pretty awkward to use as an out compared to other, better cards. In Modern, there are a ton of cards that can act as a 1-for-1 removal like Doomlord, but don't require a normal summon to use, and are usually more preferred because of how easy they are to use. And even back in the day, there were better routes to Jhin that followed the same principle, or were level 4 monsters that could also be used to make rank 4s, unlike Doomlord, which is level 3, so harder to convert into an extra deck play. But at the very least, while his uses were niche, it was cool to see the way Aster used Doomlord ended up being a really solid way of using the card for real, even if it wasn't exactly as a stall tool. Making things an absolute at number 8 is Destiny Hero Dogma, one of Aster's main boss monsters that showed off the sheer power of the Destiny Heroes. In order to access this power, you have to tribute 3 monsters, including a Destiny Hero to bring Dogma to the field, and it gains access to its absurdly high 3400 attack. But that's not the only thing it gives you, as once per turn during your opponent's standby phase, after it's been special summoned to the field, you get to cut your opponent's life points in half. This made it one of the strongest Destiny heroes in the anime, and one that Aster would use to great effect as an almost unstoppable beatstick that constantly threatened to end duels quickly with how fast it could run through an opponent's life points, which seemed like a deadly tactic in Aster's third duel against Jaden. This was Jaden's comeback tool, one where he showcased the power of the Neo-Spacians as well as the lessons he learned from them along the way while rediscovering his childhood love of heroes, after Sartorius had tried to take over his mind with the Light of Destruction. But for Aster, the duel was important for more reasons than Jaden could ever know, as the only reason he agreed to the duel in the first place is because Bonaparte had promised that if he'd won, he would give him information regarding his father's killer. But a second win over Jaden would have also allowed him to prove that Sartorius' predictions were an absolute, and that no other hero on Earth would ever be able to surpass the strength of the Destiny heroes. But the Neo-Spacians hailed from space, and throughout the duel proved how strong they could be to pushing Aster to his limits, to the point where he even began questioning his own dogmatic beliefs and the burden he placed onto his father's D-heroes. Even with this doubt in his mind, Aster continued to fight on, and eventually managed to bring Dogma to the field, which forced Jaden to summon out a new hero he hadn't seen yet, Elemental Hero Flare Neos, a monster that reminded Aster of his own childhood love of heroes. This made Aster smile, as the doubt in his belief slowly bloomed into a respect for Jaden as a hero, a respect that was solidified as Dogma went in for the final blow against Flare Neos, using Cyclone Blade to wipe the field of spells and trap cards to reduce Flare Neos' attack, only for one of the cards they destroyed to set 2 new back rows of the field, which increased Flare Neos' attack to be just enough to defeat Dogma. And while this ultimately definitely hurt Aster's pride, it was necessary, as not only did Aster start to respect Jaden, this loss was the catalyst that allowed him to see through Sartorius' manipulation. But in the TCG, being defeated is just about the only thing Dogmatic is good at, because its effect isn't amazing. Requiring 3 monsters at tribute is a lot of investment, especially since one needs to be a Destiny hero, so you'd need a pretty strong effect in order to justify the amount of tributes. And Dogma's standby phase burn isn't worth the cost, since it's pretty slow and can't end a game on its own. But there have been certain janky strategies that have tried to take advantage of Dogma. Magical Explosion FDK, for example, would use both Dogma and Plasma as targets for draw spells like Destiny Draw and Trade-In to thin their deck, and some other strategies even try to make Destiny Hero Dragoon work if fusion monster requires Dogma as a material. But overall, it's definitely a shame that one of Aster's coolest bosses and the representation of his powerful beliefs is just a pretty janky monster. It can function as a solid beatstick, but its best use is as discard fodder, or as material to pave the way for the final D. Speaking of which, and at number 7, we have Destiny End Dragoon, the final D card signaling D-End. And it being the final D card makes a lot of sense as it's a fusion between the 2 strongest Destiny Hero monsters, Destiny Hero Dogma and Destiny Hero Plasma. By giving up your battle phase for the turn, you can use Destiny End's effect to target and destroy one monster your opponent controls, and if that monster is face up when you popped it, you inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's attack. And if Destiny End ever finds its way to your graveyard, then during your standby phase you can banish a Destiny Hero card from your graveyard to special summon it back to the field. Each of these effects have been heavily researched and carefully crafted by the Senrigan Group, a rival company to the Princetons that sponsored Aster's career as a pro duelist, and entrusted the card to the safekeeping of Aster as an assistants. One such assistant was actually the Chaz, who, despite his dedication to his job, actually ended up losing the card while it was in his care. This infuriated the Senrigan Group as they had invested a lot of money into the final D's research. Aster was willing to take responsibility for the card's loss and was forced to quit the pro leagues after Chaz lost his duel against Jaden. This was a devastating blow for Aster, as the money he earned from his time in the pro league got sent back to the school for orphans, and being forced to quit meant that he could no longer donate to those who had lost his parents like him. But as it turned out, Chaz never lost the final D card. It had been stolen by a TV producer who took advantage of the chaos and set up Aster's retirement duel against Ojim and Jom, where he planned to fix the fight so Aster lost in an extremely embarrassing way. However, thanks to the interference of Jaden Yuki, the TV producer was caught and the final D was returned to Aster, who now no longer had to quit. This meant that a real duel between Aster and Chaz could begin, where we got to see Destiny End Dragoon in its activation, where it showed off its status as the final D by shrugging off Armed Dragon level 10's effect before facing it head on in battle, giving Chaz only a single turn before Destiny End would return to the field and win the duel. Fortunately for Chaz, Ojama Yellow came in clutch to leave Aster defeated before Destiny End could return. But either way, this duel was a victory for Aster, as it allowed him to continue his career as a pro duelist and donate money to the orphanage. Unfortunately though, if the Sarengan group had existed in the real world, they would have wasted quite a lot of money on Destiny End Dragoon. Destiny End's effects were quite strong at one point in time. Being able to remove any one of your opponent's monsters is a pretty good effect, and if it ever gets into the graveyard, you'd be safe in the knowledge that you would eventually return, which is why some older Destiny Hero strategies did their best to try to make it work. But even back then, the card had issues, most notably the fact that it was really difficult to bring to the field as it required specifically Dogma and Plasma and a way to fuse into it, which are 3 specific cards of investment. Nowadays though, it's incredibly easy to access Destiny Hero Dragoon thanks to Fusion Destiny, which lets you use Dogma and Plasma as fusion materials from the deck, letting you go into Dragoon off of just a single card. But you would never actually do this. Destiny End has solid removal and is pretty recursive, but it's completely outclassed by DPE, who has non-targeting removal that you can just activate at quick effect speeds to interrupt an opponent. And it's just as recursive as well, since if Phoenix Enforcer is destroyed by battle card effects, such as its own, you can use this effect to revive any Destiny Hero monster from your graveyard during the next standby phase, including itself, letting you summon it back to the field every single turn. And so, it's definitely a little sad that despite how important this card was for Aster's career and the final send-off for GX Destiny Heroes, it's a pretty janky boss monster rather than a game-ending threat like DPE ended up being. And at number 6, we have Destiny Hero Dasher, a card that showed Aster that even when fate is turned against him, miracles can happen. Dasher has 3 effects. Its first effect can be activated on field and requires you to tribute a monster so it gains 1000 attack until the end of the turn. But after Dasher attacks, you must switch to defense position and immediately end the battle phase. And last but not least, when you draw for turn while Dasher is in your graveyard, if the card you drew was a monster, you can use Dasher's effect to special summon that monster from your hand for free. Now, Dasher being a powerful beatstick made it a great part of Aster's arsenal, but its Dasher's graveyard effect was what made miracles happen. You see, in Aster and Jaden's tag duel against Serena, things seemed unwinnable, as no monster summoned seemed capable of taking down one Dark Creator, and Serena had a field of 10. This left Aster hopeless, especially after Dasher was sent to the graveyard almost immediately after it was summoned. And yet, Jaden still continued to fight and look for a way to defeat the Dark Creators. This shocked Aster and made him realize that Jaden was a complete fool, but he was still inspired by his words, and though he believed it impossible, he was interested in seeing how Jaden could possibly make a comeback from such a losing position, and mentally called out for Jaden to use the power of Dasher. A call that was answered as Jaden drew Neospace and Dark Panther and summoned it to the field using Dasher's effect, which ended up being a winning play as Jaden was able to access Dark Neos to negate Dark Creator's effect, leaving it vulnerable and allowing the 2 heroes to win the duel. It was a miracle and one Aster couldn't believe, but it solidified his respect for Jaden and made him realize that Jaden was the one who could turn the wheel of fate in their favor. But in Jaden's mind, it was Aster's Destiny Heroes that turned the wheel and assured their victory, as he wouldn't have been able to win without Dasher's effect. So in a way, Dasher represents the bond and respect held between the hero and anti-hero, and how they were both necessary in order to defeat Destiny itself. And funnily enough, Dasher might just be able to make similar miracles happen in the actual TCG. And that's because it's one of the best Destiny Hero monsters to fuse from the deck for the summon of DPE, with the effect of Fusion Destiny in non-hero decks. Hero strategies usually prefer to send graveyard extenders with Fusion Destiny to climb into their modern Link monsters, or to act as free fusion materials, as they can easily play under the Fusion Destiny lock. But if you were trying to use Fusion Destiny in a non-hero deck, the fusion materials you use will vary on your deck, but the most popular combination was Dasher and Celestial, the 2 strongest follow-up options that paired excellently together. Celestial lets you draw 2 cards by banishing itself another Destiny hero, virtually guaranteeing following up if your entire board was wipe. The only caveat was that in order to use the effect, you had to have no cards in your hand, which could be difficult to do if you happen to draw something like Nibiru for turn. But Dasher easily solved that issue, as when you draw, you can use Dasher to special summon the monster from your hand for free, which can act as free extension, extra attack points to go in for the OTK, or to ensure you have 0 cards in hand so you can use Celestial's draw too. In fact, this combination is so strong that in Master Duel, Celestial is actually banned as the follow-up provided was simply too overwhelming alongside DPE. And while Dasher is definitely the least outstanding card of the 3, it is capable of making miracles in even the most dire of circumstances. And at number 5, we have Destiny Hero Diamond Dude, one of Aster's most iconic heroes that he used in almost every duel. And that makes a lot of sense, as Diamond Dude has a generic but powerful effect that lets you excavate the top card of your deck, and if it's a normal spell, you can send it to the graveyard. Then, during your next main phase, you can activate the effect of that spell card that you milled. But if you didn't excavate a normal spell, the card you revealed returns to the bottom of the deck, Aster always seems to be in sync with Diamond Dude, as every time he used his effect, he'd mill a powerful normal spell, such as Destiny Draw or Graceful Charity. But it was in Jaden and Aster's second duel where Diamond Dude dominated. Jaden was already struggling with Aster's unbreakable board of Destiny heroes that he just couldn't break through, with Diamond Dude being the icing on the cake by letting Aster apply even more pressure by milling Misfortune to whittle away at Jaden's life points. But that's not all, as the second card that Diamond Dude milled turned out to be a magical stone excavation. So on the next turn, Aster was able to add back Misfortune to burn Jaden again, and would have won Aster the duel early on if Jaden hadn't used Defusion at the last second. Using burn spells with Diamond Dude like Aster did is a little bit gimmicky and unreliable, but he still showed off what made Diamond Dude so amazing to the TCG. There have always been busted normal spells in Yu-Gi-Oh! Even back when Diamond Dude was first released, and so an entire strategy was created around Diamond Dude's ability to use these spell cards known as Diamond Dude Turbo. This deck was built up almost entirely for normal spells, from draw spells to back row removal, but was specifically reliant on mill cards like Monster Gate and Reasoning. These cards can mill your entire deck, enabled a ton of different Diamond Dude variants, from its original, from Magical Explosion to Dark Armed Dragon Return, as they all fill the graveyard with insane spells that could either recur themselves or could be added back with Magical Stone Excavation or DMOC, similar to how Aster used the card in the anime. And Diamond Dude was the perfect enabler for the strategy, as it could be searched with Stratos and could be discarded with Destiny Draw. And because you were playing so many normal spells, you were virtually guaranteed to hit its effect. The best part is that Diamond Dude's effect ignores costs, so you can use these spells without paying any kind of price. These factors combined meant that Diamond Dude managed to survive for quite a while in the meta, and managed to receive legitimate play all the way into Teledad format. In the modern day though, Diamond Dude Turbo has definitely fallen out of favor, but it's still an iconic card that helped define some of Yu-Gi-Oh's earliest formats, and showcase Aster's genius, as the way he used it in the anime turned out to be meta-viable, even if only for a short time. And at number 4, we have Elemental Hero Phoenix Enforcer. Aster Phoenix's ace elemental hero and the inverse version of Jaden's favorite hero, Flame Wingman. And that makes a lot of sense, as while they share the same materials, Flame Wingman has an offensive effect to burn your opponent, but Phoenix Enforcer has a defensive effect which prevents him from being destroyed by battle. They even both have Shining Forms, which lets them gain 300 attack for every elemental hero monster in the graveyard. And it was both of Phoenix Enforcer's forms that established that Maiden Shmooky wasn't the only one that can awaken the innate potential hiding within heroes. In fact, Aster sought out to prove that he was a better hero duelist than Jaden by taking on Zane Truesdale, whom Jaden had only managed to draw with. This wouldn't be an easy task, as after graduating, Zane was a breakout hit as a pro duelist, and had yet to lose a game thanks to the power of the Cyber style. Aster, however, did not fear Cyber Dragon and managed to bring out Phoenix Enforcer fairly early on, who survived multiple attacks from Zane's power-bonded Cyber Twin Dragon. And after surviving this blow, it became quite apparent that not only was Aster not afraid of the Cyber style, he didn't respect it either, as he summoned out Sparkman and humiliated Zane by activating Spark Blaster 3 times to keep changing Twin Burst battle position over and over to mock Zane, before going into Shining Phoenix Enforcer. And this lack of respect actually ended up tilting Zane, as he was so angry that after summoning Cyber and Dragon, he didn't consider Aster's set card, and foolishly attacked into Shining Phoenix Enforcer, and fell face first into Aster's trap, disgracing Zane with his first Pro League loss. But Aster's love of Phoenix Enforcer was more than just skin deep, as it was actually the hero persona that he took on when he stalked the night searching for information on his father's killer, and showed that while someone like Jaden idolized heroes, Aster was willing to embody them. Unfortunately though, neither Jaden or Aster's original ace heroes or their shining forms have ever seen any real success. Phoenix Enforcer being protected by battle is an okay effect, but one that doesn't really further a game plan, and can easily be superseded by any form of removal, which means it's never really been worth trying to jump through hoops to summon. However, Phoenix Enforcer actually has a Destiny Hero upgrade that once terrorized the meta. That of course being a Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, a fusion between the original Phoenix Enforcer and Destiny Hero Plasma, and DPE was truly a force to be reckoned with. Its quick effect removal could be turn ending when done at the right time, but what really drove DPE over the top was its constant recursion. You see, whenever DP is destroyed, its graveyard effect can trigger to revive any Destiny Hero monster from the graveyard to the next standby phase. This makes it really difficult to deal with. Non-destruction removal can stop DPE for good, but because DPE's first effect also destroys a card its controller controls, they can usually just choose DPE to destroy and send itself to the graveyard to trigger its own effect. So even if you manage to bring out something like a Nightmare Unicorn, DPE will usually be waiting in the graveyard ready to return, making it an almost eternal boss monster. As a result, a lot of non-hero decks play DP for a while, taking advantage of both Vertic Anaconda and Fusion Destiny's light restrictions to add a DP to their usual end board, which was enough to turn a strong board into an overwhelming one, especially when paired with Artifact Scythe. Nowadays though, DP usually only sees play in hero strategies specifically, where it's an incredible endboard piece and extender alongside Wake Up Your Elemental Hero. But for other strategies, DPE has become a lot harder to use, either due to a lack of Vertigo Arcana or because of its increased graveyard hate presence in the format that makes it a lot less recursive. But as it stands, DP is an amazing tribute to Aster, the final D, and his ace elemental hero. And while it's sad the original Phoenix Enforcer isn't that good, DPE does an amazing job of bringing it to the spotlight. And at number 3, we have Clock Tower Prison, a card that showed that no one is safe from their oncoming destiny. And that's because Clock Tower gradually counts upwards during each of your opponent's standby phases and gains 1 clock counter. Once that Clock Tower has struck midnight with 4 counters, you can't take any battle damage. But if your opponent makes a mistake of trying to destroy Clock Tower Prison, they'll free its prisoner, Destiny Hero Dreadmaster. Once Aster had reached 4 counters, there was almost no way for Destiny to be diverted. His opponent couldn't deal any damage to him. And if anyone dared to free Dreadmaster, they'd find by destroying the tower, they'd be in an even worse position as Dreadmaster was an incredible boss monster to return all of Aster's fallen heroes to the field while gaining their strength, and was even the monster to land the final blow against Jaden in their second duel against one another, transferring the Light of Destruction to his soul and leaving his spirit broken. To Aster, Clock Tower represented an escapable destiny, and was bringing his father's killer to justice, which is why when the D froze his tower and mocked him for his internal time being frozen on the day his father died, he rushed to time forward towards his destiny with the effect of Eternal Dread. Now, in the actual TCG, Clock Tower Prison and Dreadmaster have never been amazing. But it was only a matter of time until these cards were destined for a format, because in Duel Links there's a skill known as Clock of Destiny, which solved Clock Tower's slow setup of needing 4 standby phases, as you can use a skill to add a Clock Tower to your hand by discarding a Destiny hero, and then you could put 3 counters onto it and add a Mystical Space Typhoon to your hand. This gave you a free removal spell that you could use on your opponent's back row while using Clock Tower Prison to protect you from battle damage, or you could instead use this MST to destroy your own Clock Tower once it had 4 counters to bring out Dreadmaster to OTK your opponent. These were 2 amazing options and genuinely made the tower and its prisoner viable for a while, but nowadays they've fallen off in use in modern Duel Links. Destiny heroes now revolve around the skill Destiny Effect to make summoning Destiny Hero Dystopia a lot easier. And while it's a little sad to see the Clock Tower's time has passed, it's nice to see that such an iconic card manages to play for similar reasons as to why Aster used it. And watching over the number 2 spot, we have Destiny Hero Dark Angel, the final card that Aster's father left for him that allowed Aster to finally move on from his death. Now, there are major differences between the TCG and anime versions of Dark Angel, but they're both designed to counter their respective versions of D-Force. The TCG version does this by letting you discard it to summon itself to your opponent's field, so that all spell cards and effects will be negated and destroyed, while the anime version lets you discard it put on top of your opponent's deck. Aster only ever used Dark Angel once, but it was the culmination of Aster's character arc in one of the most important duels of the series against the D, his adoptive guardian and his father's killer. Aster's entire purpose for dueling is to locate his father's murderer, and is part of why Aster was so loyal to Sartorius, as he had promised that Destiny would help him bring the killer to justice. And that killer was the D, who at first had only wished to steal Plasma from Aster's father to improve his standings in the Pro League. But something was strange about Plasma, as when the D took the card, the Light of Destruction brought out the evil in his heart, turning him from a petty thief into a murderer. The Light of Destruction treated its new host well, putting the D at the top of the Pro Leagues and making sure he'd never get caught until the time was ripe, when he challenged Aster to a duel. This gave Aster a chance to finally put the past trauma to rest, but the Light dominated this duel thanks to Plasma's absurd strength that allowed it to absorb and crush Aster's monsters, as Plasma was protected and negated all of Aster's monsters' effects while D-Force was face up on top of his deck. Aster, however, never gave up on his Destiny heroes, as they were more than just cards to him, they were his father's last gift. A gift which carried Aster to victory as he managed to draw Destiny Hero Dark Angel, the final card that his father made that turned out to be the perfect counter to Ultimate D. Because Dark Angel let Aster put it on top of the D's deck, which turned off Plasma's negation, which led Aster to summon Celestial and activate Dark City to free Dogma from Plasma and attack for game, winning the duel. But not before the soul of his father talked through Plasma's wink, letting him talk to his son one last time and inform him that Sartorius was the Light's true host. So with Aster finally having avenged his father and his stop time moving once more, Aster moved on to face the wielder of the world and his best friend, Sartorius, to free him from the Light. And funnily enough, a card like Dark Angel actually helped him defeat the most invincible strategies out there, as Dark Angel can floodgate a ton of decks out of the game. It's pretty easy to get your hand on it thanks to the numerous searchers that heroes have available to them, and Dark Angel happens to be a pretty great option. Hero decks already play a substantial Destiny Hero package, so it's fairly easy to get 3 in the grave to activate Dark Angel's effect to summon itself to your opponent's field. And from there on in, no matter what spell they activate, Dark Angel is going to negate it so long as it's face up by the time it resolves, which can protect the hero end board from common board breakers, and can even counter your opponent's best engine pieces to stop them from playing the game entirely. Not every hero deck is willing to play Dark Angel though, but in formats where the best decks are reliant on specific powered spells, it's definitely an amazing option for hero players to have access to. And so it's honestly really cool that the final card that Aster's father had left for him turned out to be an amazing gift. When used in the right way, is capable of shutting down certain strategies. But even though Dark Angel allowed for Aster to move on from his stop time, there is one more card that's even more vital to Aster's destiny. And bleeding into the number 1 spot is the ultimate D card, Destiny Hero Plasma. And Plasma earns this title. It requires 3 tributes to special summon to the field, and while you control it, Plasma continuously negates all monster effects on your opponent's side of the field. This is already an absurd effect, but Plasma also has the ability to target a face-up monster your opponent controls and equip them to gain half that monster's original attack. Every aspect of Aster's life had been influenced by Plasma. Aster's father was smart enough to keep the card hidden, but after the D had stolen it, the light contained within the card brought out the evil in his heart to end Aster's father. But it wasn't just his father or his adoptive father who was affected. Aster's best friend, Sartorius, also ended up being influenced by the light contained within the card, becoming manipulative and cunning, and uses a pawn to fulfill the light's wishes to destroy all life in the universe. But once Aster managed to defeat the D and learn the truth, he set off back to Duel Academy to save his friend from the light, holding a metaphorical umbrella for his friend the same way Sartorius had for him. Aster put up an amazing fight, but the light did everything it could to crush Aster's spirit, mocking him and wiping out every one of Aster's Destiny heroes with the powers of the Arcana Force. Things seemed hopeless, and for a moment, Aster believed he'd never be able to see his friend again, until Sartorius partially possessed him, where he was able to speak freely to him and apologize for all the havoc he'd caused. But Aster couldn't bring himself to hate his friend, and told him that it was never Destiny or fate that he believed in, it was Sartorius. And together, they had the power to surpass Destiny and turn the Wheel of Fortune. And so, with the rejection of the light's supposed destiny, Aster and Sartorius drew one final card together, Destiny Hero Plasma. The card that put Aster on his destined path in life would be the one to end it, putting Aster and Sartorius' pain to rest. Ultimately though, for as symbolic as the gesture was, it wasn't enough, and the light managed to defeat Plasma, and so Aster and Sartorius entrusted their will and fate not to Destiny, but to Jaden and the Neos to save the world. However, if this was the actual TCG, Plasma would have definitely been able to save Sartorius without Jaden's help. Plasma is an amazing boss monster for hero, as you can lock your opponent out of their on-field monster effects while you're free to combo off, essentially making it a one-sided skill drain on legs that can be easily searched. This allowed for Plasma to be an amazing option for hero decks in a way similar to Dark Angel, as against the right strategies, Plasma can lock them out of the game entirely, and the same was true in classic hero strategies, but was very format dependent, and the resource investment required to summon it was quite expensive and more awkward to use compared to the real skill drain, and had a number of outs to deal with it as well. However, in 2019, hero strategies were modernized thanks to the release of new hero cards that the deck consolidated around, so suddenly archetypal hero decks became a lot more viable, and Plasma became a great option to add to the hero end board when supplemented with other interactions. So while Plasma isn't an invincible boss monster that wins games by just existing, it's really cute that the reason why it's good in the TCG is analogous to Aster's character. As much as Aster and Plasma would wish they would win the game by themselves, in the end, it was important for them to rely on the help of the other heroes to allow them to defy destiny. And that's the list. If you think we've missed any cards, or have any ideas for characters you'd like us to cover next, please let us know down below in the comments. And remember to like the video, subscribe if you want to keep up to date on any future lists, and thanks for watching.